All right, let's dive into the details. Welcome back. Former head of FEMA, now top-rated talker at 630 KHOW Radio in Denver, Colorado, Mike Brown joins us. Mike, pleasure to see you again.
Ed, JD, good to see you guys.
What's your take then on the wonderful little discourse and the tremendous amount of entertainment that we're getting right now out of Washington? Because it has just been fun to watch as Republicans say we're going to change votes at the last minute. Nancy Pelosi's not getting what she wants out of it. If it wasn't for the fact that our government and our funding was sitting really on the precipice here, this would almost be comedy time.
It would be comedy when you think, too, about it's getting ready to go over to the Senate. The Senate just did a 2-day concurrent resolution last night to fund for 2 days so they can get their act together. Elizabeth Warren, who was against government shutdowns, is now for government shutdowns. The Republicans just won in a wave election after a government shutdown. And then what do? After we put them in office, they turn around and they say, you know what? We're going to spend $1.1 trillion. We're going to fully fund Obamacare. We're going to give money to DHS to do the immigration programs. If the American people don't have pitchforks ready to go right now, I don't know what else it's going to take.
You know, Mike, we heard all this talk about the president moving forward with his amnesty plan because he didn't heed the results of the last election. And it looks like Speaker Boehner did not heed the results of the election either. I mean, why not just do a bill till February? And why not add the language that Jeff Sessions had against amnesty? Is Boehner one of these guys who really just wants to see the amnesty enacted by hook or crook?
Well, that's 2 points, JD. You and I both have been inside the belly of that beast, and we know that that is exactly true what you just said. They could have done a very short-term CR. They could have actually worked between now and, say, the end of February to really do what needs to be done. And I think, you know, I heard yesterday during the middle of my program, I heard a news story that said Boehner and Obama have agreed. And I told my audience, I said, that's all you need to know right there. As long as we continue with the current leadership, nothing's going to change. The new people we elect can kick, scream, holler, do whatever they want to do, but as long as the leadership remains the same, and I mean I'm talking about the speaker on down to the whip, nothing's going to change. And at some point, I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but at some point the voters say, we've had enough.
Mike, then let's go ask a very simple question. Why is John Boehner then becoming a turncoat?
Because I think he is. At the end of the day, we have to be honest with ourselves, and it's something that people aren't comfortable with. We have to admit to ourselves that we have a wing of the Republican Party that is a progressive, big government wing. All they care about is taking care of crony capitalism. All they care about is having control of the purse. They truly don't believe in small government, limited government. They ignore the fiscal financial crisis this country is going to face, and that's who they are, but we don't want to admit that.
Well, let's talk, and obviously there are problems that abound in the House. Some of us even tried to move to the U.S. Senate, and there are some guys in the Senate who it would seem to me have weighed in against this. Should we expect from Ted Cruz and Mike Lee and others some sort of filibuster to try to stop this? It would certainly hamstring some senior senators who often rail against spending and dare them to come along and join a filibuster. Will the young guns in the Senate step forward and try to slow this thing down or delay it?
I think they will, but here's what they have to be careful of, JD. I mean, I hope they do if they have to, but if they're smart, and I think most of those young guns are incredibly intelligent, they might want to sit back and see, because if the Democrats end up in a cat fight over this spending bill because Elizabeth Warren and the progressive wing of the Democratic Party doesn't like some of the stuff they're doing with Dodd-Frank and the other bills, we could actually see the fight that we had hoped to see on the House side. We might see the Democrats doing that on the Senate side. And so I hope the young guns are smart enough not to shoot all their bullets just in case the Elizabeth Warren wing decides to shoot her bullets.
All right, Mike, let's go ahead and spin to the second thing that we've all been talking about here this week, and that is the CIA torture report that came out. You've been involved in emergencies before, in emergency preparations, things that have to be done on a second's notice. The 9/11 attack forced us to very much do things that we didn't want to do, but we wanted to go out and get the killers. So I ask you the same question that I've asked a lot of people in the last couple of days. Do we as Americans basically need to look ourselves in the eye and say, look, something like this happens, dirty things are going to happen. People are going to make mistakes. But at the end of the day, stop being squeamish, because we've got to protect this nation at all costs, and that's the job of the CIA. Yes or no?
Yes, and in fact, but let's define some terms. It's called the torture report. I read through it. I've been in those briefings. I was in a Senate intelligence briefing shortly after 9/11 when they talked about some of these things. And I will tell you that while the things that we did are probably make some people squeamish, it's not torture. We didn't pull people's fingernails out. We didn't do what they did to John McCain in Hanoi. We didn't break arms and tie them up behind their backs. We didn't do that kind of stuff. So it's not torture. It's enhanced interrogation.
But is it time then
Nobody
for
died.
Americans to understand that, Mike? Because it seems we're sitting here talking about the differences between torture and EITs. How do you then make people understand that this is necessary?
Well, I don't know. Other than we need to relive 9/11. We need to remember, I guess it's just so vivid in my mind, having been there, it'll never leave. But we need to remember the people taking control of their own destiny by jumping out from the 85th floor of the World Trade Center because they wanted to choose their own death. Death by fire, heat, and poisonous gas, or death by leaping to their death and hitting the cement in lower Manhattan. We need to remember those people in United 93 that chose death in order to save other Americans. We need people to go to Afghanistan and Iraq. We need them to see what these people do when they butcher people. I will tell you, Ed, I'll never forget one briefing.
Very quickly, 5 seconds.
I like to think I'm a tough guy, but I watched one of those CIA briefings about what the enemy does. I almost threw up.
All right, Mike Brown, we're out of time, my friend. We'll talk again. KHOW Radio 630 in Denver, Colorado. America's Forum will continue.